The carnal atrocities of Genghis Khan reshaped vast lands through deliberate terror, forging an empire where personal vendettas blossomed into institutionalized horror. In a shadowed Gur shrouded in acrid smoke and palpable despair, a captive woman's breath quickens under layers of heavy furs, her body marked by months of unrelenting subjugation. The supreme ruler of endless horizons slumbers nearby, his form heavy with the satiation of yet another conquest of flesh. She is but one amid countless legions, a forgotten trophy in his sprawling collection. Yet this stormy eve heralds his undoing. Her resolve hardens like the steel of a forged saber, fingers tracing the jagged edge of retribution concealed in her silken bindings. Rolling thunder conceals her pounding pulse, drowning out the ghosts of her shattered life. This Xia noble daughter, whose kin perished in roaring flames mere seasons past amid the siege of her ancestral fortress, has bided her time through endless nights of degradation, each violation etching deeper the vow of vengeance. Her gaze fixes on his exposed throat, the rhythm of his snores a mocking lullaby to her suffering. Soon the warlord who seized innumerable females, weaving their agony into the very fabric of his dominion, will learn that domination invites its own savage reprisal. The founder of a realm rooted in orchestrated violation, where wombs became battlegrounds and bloodlines weapons, faces a reckoning from his ultimate captive, a whisper of justice in a world drowned in screams. Chronicles deem it mere fable, a tale spun to soften the edges of history's blade. Yet the torment that rent the darkness that night rang true, echoing through the ages as a testament to the fragility of tyrants. How did a single man's private anguish spawn antiquity's vastest regime of carnal terror, a machine of suffering that scarred continents? Why did a lone seizure birth a lineage of 16 million heirs over twin landmasses, their very DNA a map of calculated assaults? To fathom this twisted genesis, we must journey backward a quarter century to a seizure that reshaped mortal chronicles, unraveling the threads of trauma that wove an empire's dark tapestry. What commenced with a spouse's theft would peak in lethal retribution, and a dominion steeped in torment, where one man's wound festered into humanity's enduring scar. In 1179, the man who would become Genghis Khan bore the humble name Temujin, a mere chieftain scraping a precarious existence on the unforgiving Mongolian plains where survival hinged on alliances forged in blood and barter. He wed Borte in his youth, a union arranged when they were scarcely more than children, she at 10 and he at 9, a political pact designed to bind clans and promise fragile peace amid the ceaseless feuds of nomadic tribes. Borte's dowry was a luxurious black sable coat, a symbol of her family status, and their marriage in 1178 marked Temujin's first step toward stability. Yet the Merkits, a rival tribe harboring ancient grudges, had other designs. They nursed a vendetta from a maiden pilfered by Temujin's sire long prior, a theft that festered like an untended wound in the collective memory of their people. The raid struck at first light, a whirlwind of vengeance as scores of horsemen ravaged the encampment, their war cries piercing the dawn like arrows. Temujin, caught off guard, escaped astride his swift mount, abandoning his fresh consort in the chaos, a decision that would haunt him eternally. Borte disappeared into Merkit lands, claimed as property by a fighter called Chilgerbuka, her fate sealed in the brutal calculus of tribal warfare. Across 9 grueling moons, Temujin's mate bore confinement, her days a blur of servitude and violation, though ancient texts like the secret history of the Mongols omit the precise ordeals, veiling the horrors in euphemism. But the results speak volumes, a silent indictment of the unspeakable. Upon her liberation, aided by his sworn ally Jamuka and the Karaite leader Wang Khan, Borte swelled with child, her pregnancy a shadow that loomed over their reunion. The offspring, Jochi, bore a lifelong stigma of dubious lineage, his very name translating to guest or visitor, a label that broadcast his suspect roots to all ears, whispering doubts in every tribal gathering. Temujin proclaimed the lad openly, declaring him his own to staunch the rumors, yet suspicion gnawed within like a persistent wolf. During solitary hours by the flickering firelight, he scrutinized Jochi's traits, hunting for murky resemblances in the boy's eyes. His jawline, the set of his shoulders, any echo of the enemy that might betray the truth. Borte's salvation exposed a profound fracture in Temujin, a chasm that no victory could bridge. He had reclaimed her physical form, but not her purity, not the untainted honor that Mongol culture demanded of its women. In the harsh traditions of the nomads, a female seized by foes bore eternal disgrace, a stain that tainted husband and clan alike, reducing her to a vessel of shame. The youth who had bolted astride his steed, prioritizing survival over defense, evolved into another being entirely one sworn against flight forevermore, a man armored in rage and unyielding resolve. The Merkits suffered foremost, their punishment a harbinger of the terrors to come. Not solely the abductors who had dared touch what was his, but their whole clan, a sweeping eradication that spared no soul. Females, youths, elders, all met utter annihilation in a campaign of calculated fury, Temujin's forces descending like a steppe storm. Yet mere slaughter sufficed not for the wounded chieftain. He craved their agony to mirror Borte's torment, to replicate the helplessness and violation that had scarred his own hearth. Warriors were not just slain but humiliated, their bodies left as warnings staked to the earth. Women were dragged from their gurs, subjected to public degradations before death, their cries a symphony to Temujin's vengeance. Children watched as families fractured, imprinting the cycle of trauma anew. This forged his pattern, a blueprint of retribution that would define his conquests. Carnal assault transcended mere savagery in his emerging worldview. It embodied measured vengeance, amplified globally, a tool to dismantle enemies from within. Each subdued group, whether rival nomads or sedentary kingdoms, atoned for the Merkits' transgression, their women becoming currency in Temujin's ledger of pain. His commanders grasped the mindset plainly, whispering of how the Khan's inner demons drove the machine of war. Temujin had failed to purge Borte's violation, to erase the nights she endured under another's yoke, so he imposed it universally, turning the world into a reflection of his torment. Incapable of shielding one female, he claimed multitudes, building a harem that symbolized his dominance over fate itself. The wronged morphed into the supreme offender, disseminating his torment over countless existences, where every captured maiden echoed Borte's fate, every forced union a balm for his unhealed wound. Psychologists of later eras would dissect this transformation, labeling it a projection of trauma, a cycle where the victim becomes perpetrator to reclaim control. But in the raw winds of the steppe, it was simply survival twisted into empire building, a personal scar expanded to continental scale. What Genghis wrought thereafter resonated through ages, elevating individual woe to imperial decree and institutionalizing horror on a scale unmatched in history. He elevated his pain to state policy, crafting a framework for handling seized females that was both methodical and appalling, a bureaucracy of flesh that rivaled his military logistics. Post-victory, scribes and officials appraised captive females via ranked tiers, a cold arithmetic that stripped humanity to numbers. Appearance, youth, purity, lineage, each trait bore precise value in their ledgers, scored like livestock at market. An untouched aristocrat from a fallen court could rank supreme, her noble blood adding points for prestige and potential alliances. A trader's matron, weathered by life but still fertile, might score middling, her utility measured in labor and progeny. Appraisals unfolded in public plazas amid the smoldering ruins of conquered cities, where females stood bare under the merciless sun, clerks patrolling with quills and parchments, noting every curve, every scar, every sign of defiance or submission. Top tiers flowed straight to the Khan himself, prized additions to his personal collection. Next, echelons rewarded commanders, gifts to bind loyalty through shared spoils. Mid-levels were allotted to captains, incentives for valor on the field. Lower ones granted to common troops as morale boosters, distributed in lots like rations. Subpar cases, those deemed too old, too defiant, or too broken, funneled into roaming camps, servicing every nomad force, military brothels where exhaustion and disease claimed as many as the sword. The nomads preserved meticulous logs of female placements, sources, duties, their origins catalogued with the precision of tax rolls. Such parchments resembled catalogues for flesh commerce, detailing ethnicities, skills, even preferences noted by prior owners. Females were grouped by heritage in vast enclosures. Han Chinese in one sector, for their reputed delicacy, Turkic women in another for resilience, Slavic captives in a third for exotic allure. The nomads held that varied heritages yielded distinct encounters, a diversity that enriched the spoils and prevented monotony in their endless campaigns. Overseeing myriad females demanded vast logistics, a network rivaling the Yam postal system. Dedicated wardens oversaw the detained, elite guards from the Keshig, ensuring compliance and preventing escapes. Provisions supplied sustenance and garb, not from any spark of mercy, but to preserve worth and fertility, keeping the inventory viable for maximum exploitation. Expectant females were monitored apart, their offspring sires noted in records to track bloodlines and potential heirs, a grim accounting that blended genealogy with conquest. The nomads elevated carnal bondage to administrative machinery, a state-sponsored engine of suffering that consumed resources like an army in the field. The Khan's private assemblage swelled to thousands, a living archive of his triumphs functioning under rigid oversight, with rules as strict as his Yasa code. They clustered by origin akin to living emblems of subjugated realms, their tents arranged in geometric precision around his central gur. Traversing Genghis Khan's bivouac resembled surveying a breathing atlas of vanquished folk. From the silk-robed beauties of the Jin dynasty to the veiled maidens of Persia, each group a chapter in his saga of domination. Ledger entries from the imperial treasury reveal this framework devoured roughly 15% of realm coffers, a colossal public outlay in structured violation. Funding guards, provisions, even physicians to tend the captive's health. But this was no mere indulgence. It was policy, a means to dilute enemy bloodlines, reward loyalty, and project power. Historical sources, like the Jami al-Tawarik by Rashid al-Din, detail how the Khan's harem included 44 official wives and concubines, but estimates from chroniclers, like Atta Malik Juvayni, suggest up to 500 women in total, many acquired as tribute or captives. Borte, his first wife, oversaw the primary ordo, her status unassailable despite the influx of rivals. Yasui and Yasugin, Tatar sisters captured after their clan's defeat, managed their own camps, their beauty and cunning elevating them from prisoners to empresses. Kulan, gifted by her Merkit father in surrender, bore him a son and commanded a vast entourage. Others, like Muge Khatun from the Bakrin tribe, or Yerbiesu, the former Naaman empress, added layers of political intrigue, their unions sealing alliances or humiliating foes. Concubines like Chaka, daughter of the Western Shah ruler Li Anquan, symbolized total subjugation, her royal blood reduced to servitude. The Keshig guards patrolled ceaselessly, ensuring the Khan's nightly visits remained secret and secure, their loyalty absolute. The nomads honed their tactics across each foray, perfecting the art of demographic warfare with ruthless efficiency. Following the Tatars' rout in 1202, Genghis Khan decreed all Tatar males exceeding axle height slain, a height chosen to spare only the youngest boys for assimilation. Yet females met alternate destinies, spared the blade only to enter chains. They were dispersed amid nomad ranks like provisions, allocated by rank and merit, generals claiming the choicest, soldiers sharing the rest. This lacked disorder. Leadership orchestrated and promoted it, viewing rape as a weapon to erode resistance. The aim shone evident. Tatar lineages would persist solely via nomad sires. Each compelled conception a step toward cultural obliteration. Women were forced into unions, their children raised as Mongols, erasing heritage through biology. This constituted erasure via heredity, converting maternities into tools of heritage purge, a genocide of identity that left physical survivors but shattered souls. Similar horrors unfolded in the Naaman campaign of 1204, where after Tayang Khan's defeat, his empress Juerbiasu was claimed by Genghis, her beauty turning her from widow to wife, while lesser women faced mass distribution. In the Merkit reprisals, Kulan's story exemplified the system. Presented as a virgin captive, she defended her guard's honor and won elevation, but thousands others endured anonymous torment. The conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire in 1221 amplified the scale, with cities like Samarkand and Bukhara yielding tens of thousands of captives. Persian chroniclers like Minhaj al-Siraj describe how women were herded like sheep, inspected, and assigned noble ladies to the elite, commoners to the ranks. Rapes were systematic, often public, to instill terror. Families forced to witness as a psychological blow. In one infamous episode at Urgench, survivors recounted how Mongol forces separated women by age and beauty. The young and fair sent to harems, the rest to labor camps or brothels trailing the army. Post each stronghold's fall, the nomads enacted what remnants termed the culling, a ritual of dehumanization that broke spirits before bodies. Females and maidens were herded into main plazas, the air thick with smoke from burning homes, probed like livestock at bazaar under the watchful eyes of officials. The ritual adhered to firm edicts, a protocol refined over years. Females disrobed en masse, their modesty stripped alongside their garments, examined by clerks wielding tallies and scales. Maturity assessed initially, lasses beneath 8 often perished swiftly, deemed burdensome. Matrons beyond 40 met similar fates, their utility expired. Beauty, health, skills factored next. A singer or dancer might score higher, her talents adding value. Virginity commanded premium, verified through invasive checks that left victims humiliated. Being selected promised no reprieve. It signified ingress into the nomad carnal network as personal asset, shared concubine or camp follower. The culling aimed to shatter wills from the outset, sowing division and despair. Females grasped not the metrics nor comprehended why kin parted, sisters separated by a point's difference, mothers torn from daughters, or why companions endured variant plights, some to luxury in ordos, others to degradation in the ranks. Psychological torment amplified the physical. Guards encouraged false hopes, whispering of mercy to the compliant, only to betray them. In the Oirat conquest of 1207, Genghis ordered 4,000 girls raped repeatedly by his soldiers, their families compelled to watch, a spectacle that claimed 2 lives from sheer trauma and drove the chieftain to suicide. Such acts weren't aberrations but policy, designed to crush resistance and integrate survivors through Stockholm-like bonds. The nomad realm's framework encompassed relay posts along the vast Silk Road arteries, offering triple amenities to weary troops. Swift mounts for relay, warm meals to sustain, and seized females for comfort. Each key post housed repose lodges erected to uniform designs, sturdy yurts clustered around wells and stables, manned by overseers who treated women as expendable resources. Station masters tallied ready females meticulously, cycling them across sites to thwart flight bids and prevent attachments that might breed rebellion. Rotations were frequent. Women shuttled like cargo on horseback, their identities reduced to numbers on manifests. The magnitude loomed immense, with prudent tallies from historians like Jack Weatherford, positing 50,000 females ensnared at the empire's zenith, a floating population servicing hundreds of thousands of warriors. These way stations dotted the empire from the Volga to the Yellow River, integral to maintaining morale during long campaigns. In the Hungarian invasion of 1241, under Batu Khan, similar stations supported the horde, captives from Kievan Rusas providing services amid the advance. The nomads chronicled all with precision rivaling armament stocks, daily counts detailing serviced warriors, gravid females, nocturnal losses from suicide or abuse. Escapes were rare. Punished brutally recaptured women branded or maimed, their fates a warning to others. Contemporary heredity studies affirm the reach, a scientific echo of historical horror. Research published in the American Journal of Human Genetics in 2000 and 3. Identified a star cluster Y chromosomal lineage prevalent in 8% of men across former Mongol territories, representing 0.5% of the global male population, roughly 16 million men, carrying Genghis Khan's genetic signature. Yet, this arose not haphazardly, but from hereditary conflict via methodical violation, a biological imperialism that rewrote demographics. A lone nomad fighter might sire scores yearly through assigned captives, his seed enforced through captivity. Scale this by vast legions over 200,000 at peak across eras of dominance, and the result is continental populace shift, enemy genes diluted in Mongol blood. Heredity probes indicate that in certain zones like Mongolia and northern China, the ratio climbs to 30%, clusters mapping conquest routes with eerie accuracy. This embodies myriad carnal assaults, etched in vital hereditary script, living proof of the empire's dark underbelly. Expanding to include female descendants, estimates from sources like The Collector suggest 40 million total heirs, 1 in 200 people worldwide tracing back to the Khan's harem. The nomads exceeded mere tallying and allotting females. They advanced anguish techniques, innovating with each subjugated society to amass an arsenal of dread. From the Chinese, they adopted chemical substances, herbs, and potions to heighten pain or induce submission, prolonging sessions for maximum trauma. Persians contributed psychological timing, breaking victims through isolation and false kindness, eroding will over days. Slavs and Turks added physical restraints, elaborate bindings that immobilized without killing, allowing repeated use. They mastered mental cadence, alternating brutality with reprieve to foster dependence. Compounds amplifying torment were tested in camps, victims' reactions noted for refinement. They compelled kin to aid in mutual anguish, forcing brothers to hold sisters, mothers to choose which daughter suffered first, a hierarchy of horror that turned families against themselves. Captives faced dire dilemmas: violate another for food or starve, betray a friend for lesser pain or endure worse. They forged orders where captives harmed peers for meager gains, like extra rations or a night's rest, breeding distrust and self-loathing. The nomads perfected the framework of despairing choices, a science of suffering that ensured compliance without constant force. As the realm crested, victim youth declined steadily, a chilling evolution driven by economics. Initial posts employed females from 15 to 35, prime years for fertility and endurance. At the realm's apex, maidens as tender as 8 surfaced in formal logs, their small frames deemed durable under extreme use. The nomads learned through grim trial that youthful captives lasted longer, resisting disease and breakdown, a ghastly fiscal reckoning that prioritized longevity over morality. Records from the Yuan dynasty, successors to the Mongols, detail how child captives were conditioned early, raised in ordos for future roles, their innocence commodified. Yet amid these captives emerged one fated to alter all, a spark of defiance in the abyss. Noble Kira, known in legends as Gerbel Kingoa, or the Tangut princess of the Shisha realm, was 17 when nomad hordes besieged her fortress in 1226, the final campaign against the Western Shah. She beheld her siblings slain in the courtyard, their blood soaking the stones, and her sire leap from the ramparts over facing capture, his body crumpling below like a discarded banner. In the ensuing culling, amid thousands herded and scored, her exalted line and ethereal allure destined her for the Khan personally, a prize to crown his victory. Transported to his camp, she entered the harem as a concubine, her days a regimen of submission, her nights claimed by the aging conqueror. For 3 cycles, Kira withstood existence as Genghis Khan's paramour, her spirit unbroken beneath the facade of obedience. She acquired the nomad tongue through whispered lessons from sympathetic captives, mapped the bivouac's patterns, the guards' shifts, the Khan's habits, the hidden paths through the tents, and awaited the ideal juncture, nursing hatred like a secret flame. A veteran paramour, perhaps Yasui herself in some accounts, covertly supplied her with a thin dagger or counsel, and Kira rehearsed the fatal strike in shadows. her movements silent as a steppe fox. Legends vary. Some say she concealed a blade in her hair. Others that she used no weapon but her own body, biting during the act, in a final act of defiance. The instant arose amid a gale, the winds howling like vengeful spirits. The Khan, weakened by campaign but insatiable, imbibed deeply of fermented mare's milk and summoned Kira expressly, his voice slurred with command. She veiled her intent in a compliant guise, entering his gur adorned in silks that masked her resolve. As he reclined on plush rugs, vision blurred by spirits and age, she approached with feigned eagerness. In the legend's most gruesome telling, preserved in oral tales from the Gobi and chronicled by later historians like Marco Polo in veiled references, Kira struck during intimacy, her teeth seizing his manhood in a castrating bite that severed and shocked, blood flooding the furs as he roared in agony. For the Shishia, she murmured in flawless nomad speech, her words a curse invoking her fallen kingdom, as life ebbed from the tyrant. Alternative accounts whisper of a hidden blade to the throat or poison in his drink. But the castration myth endures, a poetic justice where the instrument of his crimes became his doom. The warlord who ravaged realms perished as he thrived, encircled by tokens of his sins, silk partitions segregating his females by origin, their muffled sobs a chorus to his end. His terminal site encompassed the opulent gur, symbols of power now mocking his frailty. Kira fled through the tempest to a nearby precipice, the storm masking her escape, and plunged into the raging torrent beneath, choosing death over recapture. Her form surfaced spans later, battered but unbowed, a symbol of resistance. But the harm stood inflicted. The supreme Khan lay slain, his dominion commencing to splinter without his iron will. The nomad marshals, horrified at the vulnerability exposed, fabricated tales of his demise illness from a fall off his horse during the siege, an arrow wound festering, even the plague ravaging his camp, anything barring the verity of a captive's revenge. Historical records like The Secret History obfuscate the cause, stating only that he ascended to heaven after subduing the Tangut, but whispers persisted. They refused to concede the globe's paramount subjugator, fell to an adolescent maiden he had enchained, fearing it would embolden rebellions across the empire. Yet tales circulated via the female's gurs throughout the realm, passed in hushed tones during labors or under starlit skies. The noble who felled the fiend, evolved into myth, murmured in gloom, inspiring secret hopes among the oppressed, a legend that outlived empires. The nomad carnal dread endures as antiquity's most methodical surge of violation, a system that illustrated how intimate woe can swell into landmass dread, how a solitary scar can mar mankind wholly. It transformed regions. In Persia, architecture shifted to fortified women's quarters, cultures emphasizing female seclusion as protection from invaders. In China, under the Yuan, genetic markers spiked, blending Mongol and Han in ways that reshaped demographics. The machinery of carnal bondage survived its architect, persisting across lineages via structural inertia, with successors like Agade and Kublai, maintaining harems and slave trades. Presently, the conduct ripples linger in zones once nomad-governed societies, centered on female safeguard, folklore warning of steppe horrors, hereditary traces charting antique dread. A lone man's surge of carnal violation veritably recast the mortal heredity, imprinting wounds persisting 800 years onward. A legacy of 16 million echoes in DNA, 40 million souls bearing the shadow of his trauma.